In this video, I'm going to show you how to use the brushes in another situation. You can use it for character design, and I'm going to show you how to do it with some cool line work using some simple brushes that we created before. So you can see I just did a quick sketch on just normal paper and with a pencil, and this is the line work of the little character face with just normal strokes, and you can see it's very flat and boring, but as we add some brush strokes to it, you can see how it adds some flavor, it adds a bit of style. You can see it's more there's more variety, and there's more of a a cool look and a style aesthetic to it. And you can see I just went and used the brushes as well for some of the shading and some of the highlights there as well, which looks pretty good. And you can see that it gives it a nice rough look, and it's not too robotic or stale. So that's why these brushes are cool. Even in the background looks pretty nice as well, just by using these simple brushes. And you can see down here, I just use these brushes. These ones up here were just made from the felt tip pen or even the charcoal, and this was done from the charcoal as well. So yeah, just use those brushes, and what we're going to do is we're going to recreate this. I'm just going to make a new document, go to File, New, and I'm just going to select 1080 by 1080. Well, actually, I'm going to go 1160 by 772. That's pretty cool. And then just call it character face or whatever you want to call it. And we're going to do a landscape view. And CMYK is fine. Press create. And I'm just going to bring in my sketch from here. I'm just going to unlock it. And just going to copy these brushes in. So the brushes we used before, you can use any of them or you can make more. Just going to bring these in. And yeah, sweet. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a new layer. So I'm just going to call this sketch, double click on the word, and you can type that in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make these brushes now. So open your brush window, go to window, and you can go to brushes, and that will open the brush panel. I'm just going to click this little drop down menu. You can see it's got 4 lines. Click that and go select all unused, and then click the little bin down here, bottom right corner. That's going to delete all the old brushes we're not using. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to drag these brushes in one by one. Go art brush. We're not going to use all of them, but you just pick ones you like. And I'm just going to change this to tints and leave the rest as is. Because we're not going to be using a Wacom, we're just going to be using it on a fixed art brush, and it's not going to be pressure sensitive, which makes it easier for you guys because some of you are beginners, which is pretty sweet. And I'm just going to go through this and then add all these brushes in to my panel. So now we've got our brushes in. Now we're going to get to the sketch. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new layer and call it design, or you can call it line work actually. And we're going to lock the layer on below. So you can see you got the eyeball, you can turn that off, and you can next to it click it and it's going to lock it. So now our sketch is locked. So I've just locked my sketch, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to press P for the pen tool. I'm going to select a bright color here, bright pink, and I'm just going to go through and use the pen tool, clicking and dragging and holding shift to get some nice curves, and just going through and creating my little character. So we've got our pieces here. You can save it on different layers if you want to do like the head and the face, but I'm just going to do all the line work on one layer. So we'll just go through the whole thing, doing all the lines that we need until we've finished. So we've done our character. You can see it's all just strokes. We can bump the weight up by clicking on the top left corner. You can see your stroke here. You can click the weight to bump that up. And we can go to my stroke panel now. Go to window and go down to stroke to open that. So I've got my stroke panel here, and I can actually just round off the corners if I want. So you can see I've rounded them off because it sticks out. So you click the round cap and round join, and that rounds it off. So sweet, we've got our strokes here. And now what we can do is actually start to build this out. So I'm just going to make a copy of this across here. And now you can see we have our character here. So what I usually do, we've got our brushes here. So I'm just going to bring this out so you guys can see. So we've got all our brushes here. And now what we can do is start building these brushes out. So I'm just going to change the color to black. And what we can do now is I can actually start selecting parts of the stroke and finding some strokes to use. So we can just click on them, and you can see they're a bit thick. What I like to do is select them and pick one that's really thin for this type of work. But what we can do is I try and keep the stroke below 1 point, and you can actually go to 0.25, which makes it really thin, and you can even type in smaller increments like 0.1, which makes it even thinner. So I usually just play around with this and just test out different ones. Maybe 0.5 looks better, or maybe 0.75. That actually looks nice, so I'm going to leave it along that. And then I'll just go through and just using the same stroke and just applying that and trying to keep it consistent. So I'll keep all the main outlines thicker than the other details on the face. That just gives it some dynamic and keeps it looking, unique. So we can see now that we've gone through all our strokes and added these brushes, and you can see the big difference between before, how it's really flat, and now we've got some, different looks. It's got some, different styles and different thickness, and it's got different effects for the length of the strokes. So it's looking much better, a lot more vibrant and fun. So what I usually do now is you can add some more dimension to it by using the width tool. The width tool is great. What we can do is press Shift W, and you can see you get this width tool or width tool. You can also go on the left hand side there as well and click on the button there. And what I do, I select the strokes that I want to play around with, and I go Shift W. And what it allows you to do is to add width to the stroke, make it really smaller or thinner. So you can see how I've got that tapered look, and I'll go through and do it through all my strokes. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I just go through. You can see we're starting to add some dimension to our character. Don't do it too thin because it might look out of proportion. So you want to try and make it still realistic and consistent with the other strokes. So that's pretty cool. So I've just added the ones where I feel like it needs it. And now we can actually start building out other parts of the illustration. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call it color. And usually with this, I just go through and make shapes. So I'm just going to do that to save some time. What you do, just use the pen tool, and you want to put the color layer under the line work. So the line work is above it. And you can actually just start going in and just clicking under the black lines, keeping it within that shape so you don't get color where you don't want it. And you can just see I'm clicking through like this, and then we can just add the color just like that. And I'll do the same for all the shapes, for the eyes, in the face, skin color, even in the hair. So just press P for the pen tool and just go through and click around. Just keep it clean if you want. And that's what I'm going to do for the whole character. And I'm just going to add simple colors. You can also use the blob brush tool. Just press Shift B. It's also on the left hand side here. You can right click on this little paintbrush, as you can see here, and the blob brush tool is just below that. It's Shift B, and what it allows you to do, it's like a paintbrush in Photoshop. You can press left square bracket and right square bracket to make it smaller. And we can actually paint through the shapes. So some of these shapes I'll just go through, and because it's just a normal black color, I'm just going to go through there, paint it. And the cool thing about the blob brush tool, it keeps the shape, the brush as a shape. So if I select it, you can see it's all just one shape, which is pretty sweet. So this is another way to color in the shapes of your character, or even if you're just doing a logo or whatever you're doing, illustrations, and it makes the process a little bit quicker than using the pen tool. Sweet, so we've done our coloring in of our character, and you can see how it's shown out. You can see the line work and the color, just like that, very simple. And now we can start to add some brush work. So we're just gonna add some shading, and I'll just make a new layer and name that shading. And I'm gonna get my brushes back up. So window, go to brushes. So I've got our brushes here, and I'll just lock the other layers so we don't interrupt that. And what I would like to do is I like to press B for the brush tool, and you can see you can paint like this. And what I'll do to get the nice effects, I'll just copy this color, and then I will paint through like that, and then I'll just change the color or the blending mode of this stroke to multiply. So you can see I've just multiplied it, and it's added a nice shading effect with this brush, and you can see you get all the effects, which is pretty cool. And I'll show you in a second. We'll cut this out. We're going to make a copy of the line work and make a clipping mask, but we'll just go through and paint in all the places that you feel like there's going to be shadows. The light's coming straight down from the top, so that means the shadows are going to be under in areas that are below, directly below. And you can see I'm just going through and changing the stroke width, and just going through and putting the shadows in places I feel is there. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'll just go through and paint the shadows. Make sure you select the multiply blend mode in transparency. You can go window and open transparency down here if you don't know how to open that. You can see, just make it smaller. And you can see how the colors overlap. That's because it's on multiply, but that's okay. So we've done our shading, and what we're going to do now is make a clipping mask. And it's good for when you do shading, try and use these scribble brushes down here. You get a nicer effect. And you're going to select the stroke and actually just click the brush you want. And these ones are really nice for doing some textured work. So you can, if you don't like the textures, you can just select the strokes and actually just click on these brushes and test out some different ones if you don't like that one. Which is pretty sweet. So I'm going to go back to my layers panel. So window and layers to open your layers panel, or F7. And we're going to just copy our line work. So we're going to click on the layer and just click and drag and select all your strokes like this. We're going to press Command C or Control C if you're on a PC. And I'm going to lock that layer, go back to shading, just make sure the layer is selected. Then I'm going to press Control F and it's going to load the strokes back in there. And I'm just going to Control G to group it, and then I'm going to press Control 8, and that's going to make it a compound path. You can see in the top left corner it's now a compound path. And what I can do now, I can lock this, and I'm going to select all our shading and press Control G to group these. So now all these are grouped, and then I'm going to unlock the line work again and just select everything and press Control 7. Make sure the line work is above, so then the clipping mask will work, and you can see how all the shading is now within the lines and it won't go out of the head. And now it's all within the strokes, which is pretty sweet, as you can see there. So now we've got some cool shading, and you can do the same thing for the highlights if you want, but I'm just going to leave that out for now. I'm just going to do the background, so we'll make a new layer, call it background, and you can just play around, add so many effects. You can do shading, highlights, line work, textures, backgrounds. You can do a lot of things with just normal charcoal brushes or any brush you make. So vector brushes are a lot of fun, and it's the best to use for illustrations and even character design. So we're going to make a quick background with these brushes. I'm going to press M for the rectangle tool, drag this out, and I'm just going to change the color. I'm going to add some colors. Just if you click on this menu, the drop down menu, and go add use colors, it's going to add all the colors you're using at the moment, which is pretty handy. And I'm just going to change the color, and we'll make it a yellow, but maybe a light yellow. So now I'm going to go back to the background layer, unlock the layers, and I'm going to use this color. And what I'm going to do now is just lock that rectangle and press L for the circle tool, and I'm just going to drag out a circle. And what I'm going to do is going to select one of these fat brushes here, and I'm going to go to my blending options again, transparency, and just scroll through with your mouse and just find something that's nice. You can play around with different colors and even use yellow or this orange. I'm going to bring it above the multiply. Looks nice. I'm going to drop it to 50%, and I'm going to bump up the stroke there. And you can see we're actually getting some nice cool effects. And what I'll do, I'll just press C, Control F, and just copy that, and then just play around with other colors. Whatever looks kind of nice. I'll just play around with these. You can even get rid of the fill as well if you just want the brush strokes. And you can move this around like that. I'll just leave it like that. So you can see now we've got this cool background. And I'll make a rectangle above that, and then bring it to the front. And I'll just select all the background, press Control 7, and now we have a clipping mask. So now we've got a cool illustrated character, and we've got a nice background using these fun charcoal brushes. Experiment and create some cool things. And you can see with just a few strokes and 10 to 20 minutes, and you can create some nice vector work. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the course. Look forward to creating more for you. And don't forget to click the love heart if you liked it and learn something new today.